I have the opportunity to interview the next session, which I'm really excited about. There are certain things that impact your business dramatically, and Jay Kinder and John Kitchens are going to come up, and they're going to talk about the critical numbers of your business. I had an opportunity a few years ago to work with Chet Holmes and Anthony Robbins. I shared with you that I was personally coached by Tony Robbins, and you know, the experiences and the things that I've learned with him were invaluable. He owns 15 businesses, as you heard from Jarek. One of them is Business Breakthroughs International, and his partner was Chet Holmes. Chet unfortunately passed away a little over a year ago from leukemia. But I had an opportunity to work for these guys as a vice president business consultant. And we worked with large companies all over the world, Fortune 500 companies, helping them increase their sales, their revenues, and their profits. And I learned more in those 2 years than I have in my entire adult life. And one of the things that they talk about is what is measured can be improved, and what isn't measured can't be improved. So Jay and John are going to talk about measurements and the critical numbers that you must monitor and measure in your business for rapid growth and results and profits. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Jay Kinder and John Kitchens.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? I can't get that dance off out of my head.
Me either. That was awesome.
Good stuff. Everybody have fun last night? There's a lot of people that didn't make it this morning. That's amazing. I'm shocked.
Yeah, me too.
So there's a session going on right now. So this is going to be critical numbers that drive your business. And I would say if you're not currently set up like as at least as a S corporation or LLC or whatever, and you're not really, this doesn't interest you, and numbers might put you to sleep, and you're not really trying to run a business, you probably should go to Daniel Ramsey's session right now on the virtual assistant. So Daniel owns a company that has virtual assistants. I think the session's called 909 appointments set in so many days or whatever. But he's who we use for our virtual assistants. So if numbers aren't your gig and you're not really trying to run a business, I would definitely say go to that session, because you'll be able to leverage yourself. If it's just you and you're a solo agent and you're wanting to leverage and you don't want to have employees and you don't want to manage people or that sort of thing, definitely go to his session. It's going to be probably the place you need to be, because this is a little deeper level. It's really for I would say it's really for the people who want to run your business like a business, and ultimately this is something that John Kitchens is probably the best in the world at. It's really what it takes to be successful if you want to run a business.
Absolutely.
So this is going to be a little deeper level if you're really wanting to run your business like a business. So if you're not interested in that, instead of us putting you to sleep, we'll send you off. Oh, did we get the clicker?
A little quicker.
I think Mike might have.
Mike, put it
Or
in his
Brian
pocket.
might have it. Hang on. We'll be right back.
I'm good. I noticed my better half was representing last night, so I'm good.
All right, we're good.
We're good?
Maybe. All right. So knowing the critical numbers that drive your business, here's kind of what we're going to focus on. So I'll let you take the lead role.
The critical numbers, the three things that it allows you to focus on is, to maximize profitability, to really get clear on roles and responsibilities, who's doing what and how we're holding them accountable, and then how are we able to really drive, productivity, towards goals, towards production, that daily rhythm, and how are we doing that with numbers.
We could also call this session "Get Shit Done."
Yeah.
So how many of you are utilizing this process for your managing your business? 60% of the time, it works every time. How many of you have seen Anchorman? How many of you know who this guy is? What's his name? Brian Fontana. The enemy is winging it, okay? So, and pretty much every one of our sessions, we have somebody that's an enemy, right? So the enemy here is Brian Fontana. And if you're winging it in your business, I promise you, it takes way more effort, way more energy, way more time to wing it than it does to really be effective and efficient with everything you do.
So what happens when you don't know the numbers? You guys all know that little guy right there. And that's what majority of us do when we don't know what the heck we're supposed to be working on, what the heck we're supposed to be doing. So some of the things that happens when you don't know the numbers: turnover of staff, stress, chaos, hair's on fire. You got the firefighter hat. That was my favorite thing to retire, was putting the firefighter hat away. Being afraid to delegate. That was a big one, that, not knowing the numbers, not knowing what to delegate, what to do. Working the long hours, absolutely no clarity on what the heck you're supposed to be doing. Just being completely reactive.
Yeah. So let's have these. We spent a long time really coming up with each one of the things we felt like are the challenges that we run up against.
Yeah.
And how many of you feel like you don't know exactly what you should do every single day? Like you don't have that absolute certainty. Man, I got to do this. This matters most. I'm doing this first. How many of you experience that? Right. Yeah. So. This isn't a really sexy topic, right? It's not, the numbers are not something I was like, oh, I got a real estate. I can't wait to learn the numbers. Still got cha-chings going.
Still going.
And we tend to chase squirrels, right? So has everybody seen the movie Up? Right? Squirrel. We're the world's worst. And we were the world's worst, no question, at chasing squirrels. Anything shiny, new idea, we would jump on it. We'd be doing it. And the crazy thing about real estate is there's so many great ideas, and there's so many great ideas you're going to walk away with from here. The thing you have to learn is you have to learn what drives your bottom line, what drives profitability in your business. If you know what drives profitability, it's easy to say no. And you've probably seen tons of quotes out there. I just was reading a book just the other day, and it was it mentioned another quote about how important it is to say no to some things and to really get focused on what it is that really matters. And as you become more successful, opportunities are going to fly at you. They're going to fly at you. There are going to be so many opportunities that you have in front of you. It's the ability to know what to say no to and to really get focused that's going to determine your success or not. So this is a really important topic. And you have to understand the business. You have to be able to run it like a business. The reason that we even made this a topic in a session for today was because when I didn't know the numbers, and John did know the numbers, but when I didn't know the numbers, and ultimately, there was a point where I had to learn these numbers. It made a huge difference in whether or not we were going to be successful or not. Me not knowing the numbers is not a good thing. You can't delegate this. You have to understand it. So we're going to get into all the reasons why, but there's challenges we have with delegating. How many of you have a problem with letting go of stuff? Like I would love to hire somebody, but damn it, I do it better than anybody. I don't want to delegate this, right? How many of you are like that, right? Yeah. Nobody can do it better than us, right? So how do you let go? When you know the numbers, let me tell you something. This is a huge, huge get for me. When you know the numbers, it's not about managing people. You should never have to manage people. What you want to know is you want to know what success looks like, and you want your employee or the person that you're delegating to know what success looks like, and that to be able to manage the numbers, and the numbers manages the employee. Does that make sense? Because if you had to look over their shoulder every day on everything they're doing, they're going to hate you, and they're going to quit. So when we talk about turnover of staff, it's because we weren't using numbers. What does success look like? You have to know what the numbers are in order to be successful. And your staff, or whoever it is that's working for you in any area of the business, we're going to get into every part of the business in this session, but it's really, really a key thing to understand is you don't want to manage people. If I have to manage you, I don't need you.
Yeah.
Let's manage it from the number standpoint.
And one of the things too is with that clarity. I mean, this is part of what Mike was talking about yesterday. The first thing for us, even going into strategy, is knowing where the heck we're at. And if you know those numbers, then you have an idea exactly where you're at to be able to lay the plan out to get where you want to get going. So life after you implement, the systems, pretty good. I think we had that view a couple of weeks ago. So be able to really good at delegating, feel good about it. Give that what Jay was just talking about. You're able to not manage your people. You're able to lead your people. And my favorite there is profits will go up. So a couple other things in there. Like I said, having those numbers, you now have that clarity to be able to lay out the plan, make sure you're working on the right things. And for me, and it's on our board in the office, for us, it's doing what matters, and what matters is what drives the bottom line, what drives your P&L. And so that's, what we want to stay focused on. And, for us, a lot of talk with the buyer ISA and, why have we never taken over the buy side? Why haven't we controlled the buy side? Well, because we understand what drives our P&L is focusing on listings. And so that's why we've really dialed in the whole listing process and understanding that if we take listings that we can sell, it's actually going to move the bottom line. It's going to move the dial to, really driving revenue, driving profit.
So I'll make this comment because I don't know that not everybody is involved in and knows exactly what we're talking about. I know all our mastermind members do, but we get all excited about when I talked about growing my business and deciding to have a team and 531 transactions. When I was doing 233 transactions with like three staff, and then I brought on 3 buyer agents at the very end of that year that I did 233 units, I made more money than I ever did in real estate. And the reason I made more money was because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I had made a really good decision. I only worked with buyers and sellers, and I pretty much had delegated everything else. So every deal that was happening was me doing the deal. So guess what happens? 100% of that money goes to the bottom line. 100%. And we get real excited. And this isn't to say that you shouldn't build a team, you shouldn't have agents and this and that and the other, but you have to understand that anything that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and what happens when we start to add buyer agents and a team and people is we have to start leading and managing people. And it sounds really good because it's easy to generate leads. We all learn how to do that, and we're generating all these leads, and it's like, man, I can't call all these people. Let's get 2, 3, 5, 10 buyer agents. And as you saw the team slide yesterday, there's a cat herding video on YouTube that really, really describes to me what it feels like sometimes to be a team leader managing real estate agents. I mean, it's like trying to get everybody to do what they need to do on a daily basis is like herding cats. So you end up wearing all these different roles and responsibilities, and I don't think we necessarily understand that when you start hiring buyer agents, now all of a sudden you're wearing the role of a sales manager, you're wearing the role of the accountant, you're wearing the role of the team leader. You're doing all these things. You have all these roles and responsibilities. And when you start hiring people, half the money goes to whoever it is you're hiring, right? So on a 50-50 split, half the money is being given to someone else. Very few businesses give half the money away. So imagine going to McDonald's, and if the guy working the register was getting half of the money for every sale. It doesn't happen. So in very few businesses does this kind of opportunity exist. So our buyer agents are very lucky for the opportunity that we give them to make half the money when we pretty much handle all of the business from generating the lead to closing the deal. So when you start focusing on building the team and giving this business to agents on your team, and you're giving away half the money, that's a big percentage of your profitability. And I didn't really pay attention to that as I grew my business. The reason I went into debt was because I didn't know the numbers. I didn't understand the effect of when I was doing those deals, how much was going to the bottom line, and the difference between when I started handing those things off. And it wasn't until I stepped away from the business and saw things start to fall apart that I realized there's got to be a better way to do this, right? So it's really, really, really important as you grow your business, because the last thing you want to do is get to where I was at 531 deals and realize this model is broke.
Yeah.
And I am too, right? So, we get real caught up in it. Man, dude, I did this many units last year. And, we're all, at the bar last night talking about how many deals you do? Oh, I did 300, da, 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 da. And you can't take that to the bank. okay? It's not about that. And it was really hard for me because for years I was ingrained about doing deals, do more deals, do more deals, do more deals. And I was caught up in the awards and all that stuff, and that's all good and great. But you can't take that shit to the bank.
No.
So
We got a closet full.
this is my dad out here this morning? Is he in here? I know he was out there doing deals this morning. I don't know if he's in here or not. This is something we learned from Mr. Johnny Kinder, and that's pay yourself first.
Absolutely.
And I learned this painfully, but the most important thing that we could probably tell you today is you get paid first, okay? You want to grow your business, that's great. But it's like Jarek said yesterday, it's not about, oh, well, eventually I'm going to get, I'm going to get, paid for this effort. Here's what I've learned about paying yourself first. When you start getting paid for the work you're doing, you work a lot harder. You want it a lot more. But if you're not getting paid, you tend to not work as hard. So the first person that gets paid is you. You get paid first. You determine, and we'll talk about your market-based wage.
Yes, paying yourself a market-based wage. Paying yourself for what you do in the business. Now, there's, some, kind of got to look at your lifestyle and maybe make some adjustments. But really, if you had to, fire yourself and you had to go and replace yourself, what would you pay that person? What is that market-based wage for what you do? And, really every market's a little different, really depending upon, price point and, cost of living, kind of where you guys are at. So really getting clear on that. There's some good tools online, salary.com, reach out to the chamber, talk to some people, what are they paying, sales in your market. And that's really what you have to factor into your budget, into your P&L to be able to really get the model dialed in.
Yeah. If you got hit by a bus, what would you have to pay someone to do what it is that you do on a daily basis? If you were to go hire someone that's as good as you are at what you do, what would you have to go pay them to do it every day and you never show up again? If I didn't do this, we didn't do this. What I learned was, and I tried to step out of my business 3 different times, how many of you at the end of the year talk to your tax guy and your tax guy says, well, you made X amount of dollars, you need to go buy something? How many of you have had that conversation with your tax guy? How many of you have a tax guy? Okay.
It's a better question.
Yeah. Well, that's how I ran my business for the longest time. It was like at the end of the year, it was like, he would tell me, hey, you guys made some money. You need to go buy something. And that was how we ran the business. We just didn't understand the numbers and the metrics. And at the end of the day, when you step out of the business, I used to treat it like, how many of you treat your business, how many of you have a business set up as an S corporation or LLC? Congratulations. We have a lot of business people in the room. That's awesome.
Very good. So,
how many of you treat it like your personal piggy bank? You don't have to raise your hand. That's what I did. So anything that you wanted to buy, you just put it in the company, right? So the problem with that is you really don't know whether you're profitable or not. You're making money, yes, but you're paying yourself based on what you want to get paid, not necessarily on. You can't say this is what my business is profiting because unless you're paying yourself a market-based wage, you don't really know. So my tax guy said, pay yourself a couple $1,000 a month in salary, and then take the rest in distributions. You don't need to pay this additional money. So Greg Crabtree's going to be here. For those of you mastermind and elite level, Crabtree's he's amazing because numbers do not excite me. I'll be honest. They do now, but they never have been a sexy topic. But Greg Crabtree and the books, everyone in this room, if you truly are wanting to run your business like a business, needs to read the book, Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits, Greg Crabtree. The best book I've ever read. He made accounting sexy in that book.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a game changer for us. But you have to be paying yourself a market-based wage for what it is that you do. If you ever want to step out of your business or not, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, you need to know whether you're profitable or you're not profitable. Is your business profiting? Right now, it's like we judge that by how much money we have in the bank, right? We judge that by how much money we're able to take out of the business. That's not our business. No other business runs a business. Nobody else runs a business that way. Okay? So in real estate, they don't teach us this stuff, but it's really, really important. If you ever want to step out of the business, and I promise you, if you really want to give yourself a pressure test, just step out of the business and see if it's profitable. Okay, my shit fell apart 3 times before we figured it out.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what we learned from it.
Another thing, talk about, I'll let Cuz kind of talk about on the growth side, but one of the things that, we want to have from a cash standpoint is, what does it cost to run our business every month, including paying ourselves? So we've got to factor, that is key, that you have to factor that in. And then from there, what is that monthly total? And in our operating account, we want 2 months, okay? And, part of the strategy, it's like 3, 4, 5 months. And okay, we can set that stuff aside for taxes, but why? What are we going to do with that excess money? I mean, Jarrett talked about it yesterday, money needs to be, making you money. So why are you just going to have it sitting there? Okay, you've got those 2 months. We can reinvest it back in the company. You can take distributions, whatever the strategy is, but 2 months is the magic number. And then you want to touch on growth, something that we had an aha with Crabtree about a month ago, actually. So
Yeah.
what he kind of...
So how many of you have started doing something in your business and then looked at the bank account one day and freaked completely out and stopped doing everything? Right? We do this all the time, right? It's like, holy shit, it's bad. And then we would stop doing everything that was working. It didn't matter if it was working or not. We're like, stop everything. Hit the brakes. We're done, right? So this is we didn't understand this. Thank you, Greg Crabtree. I can't wait to have his session today. Game changer. So what happens is, and I'll give you really the next slide is kind of the key, is it's understanding what the cash conversion cycle is. A lot of times we go buy stuff or we start to put things in systems in place and whatnot, and then we stop doing it at a certain point. A lot of times it's, regardless of not what we realize it or not, it's looking at the bank account and going, we got to stop doing some things because we're losing. The cash is at an all-time low. We got to stop doing things. So we start to freak out a bit. And the biggest lesson I can tell you is that we learned was at a point where we started doing TV at the cost of $10,000 a month. You do not need to do that. So this is one of those grocery cart ideas. Now TV's great and it does work, and there's a point in which you get in your business where it makes sense to do TV, but I was okay with $10,000 a month. I think we had $100,000 in the bank at the time, and I didn't understand what the cash conversion cycle was. So the reason we make bad decisions and we stop doing things that are working is because we don't understand this one principle. At least for me, this is what I didn't understand was, how long does it take before TV is going to start profiting? And TV was working. There was no question. If you're spending $10,000 a month on TV,
crazy.
It will absolutely get you business, no doubt. And we were getting a ton of business, but what I wasn't understanding when I started doing TV was, I wasn't just saying, I'm okay with, I had $100,000 in the bank, big deal. I can do $10,000 a month, no big deal. We can afford this. But what I didn't compute in my head was, how many months is it going to take for me to get to break even with this investment before it starts profiting? So probably about month 5, at about $50,000 invested, I started freaking out because what's happening to the cash in the bank? It's going down.
Yep.
So as that started to happen, I knew TV was working, right? I'm going on appointments all day, every day on listing appointments, but I started to freak out because I didn't understand that, I didn't know that it was going to take TV. 30 days later, we start taking listings. The average days on the market at the time was probably 6 months in our marketplace, and it takes time for those listings to go into contract and close. We didn't break even. I was $80,000 invested in TV before I broke even, before I hit broke even, right? When I said yes to TV, I was like, I can afford $10,000 a month. What I didn't know I was saying yes to was 8 months from now, you'll be at break even. I didn't understand that was going to drop my cash in the bank that much before I was going to see the benefits of the investment. So with every person you hire, with every investment you make in your business, and Greg Crabtree talks about this is a big get that you mentioned that we got from Greg the other day in a conversation, was that if you have 60 days worth of operating capital in the bank, then you can finance growth. Put it on a credit card. You can do whatever you want. If you got 60 days of operating cash, in real estate, you could probably make the argument that 90 days is an okay thing. But if you got that much cash in the bank, now you can afford to invest in your business. You can finance growth. And I hate credit cards. I had lots of them. When you get 680 something thousand in debt, I don't want any debt, right? So, but you can finance growth when you have your core capital targets hit. When your operating cash is at least 60 days, you're not taking from that money to invest in the growth of the business. And when you do, at least you understand what is the timeline it's going to take for me to get paid back before that money is going to be replaced in your business. So we stop doing things a lot of times right before they really start to give us the dividends and the payoff, because we're not thinking of how long is it going to take for me to get back to break even and then start profiting from this investment. We're not looking at it that way. So as a business, that's a critical number.
Very critical.
It allows you to sleep better at night, I promise you.
If you guys, critical for a lot of reasons, but really you got to know where your business is coming from. And the two things that we really pay, a lot of attention to is the company-generated business and agent-generated business, especially as you guys start growing your teams and adding buyer's agents. You've really got to track those numbers for a couple reasons. One, when you have the difficult conversation with your agents that want more money, and
Hold on, I have to intervene, right?
All right.
So there's some agents in the room, and that's great, fine. How many of you as a team leader or as the owner of the company running this business have had your agents come to you and say, you know what, I think I want a better split? How many of you want to punch them in the face? Okay, that's how I felt. So, God bless our buyer agents, they're hustlers, but they're getting half the money in most cases in the business, and if you're running your business right, you're not paying that much. Not to say you guys as buyer agents aren't worth that. You guys are killing it. You're awesome. I have an awesome team, and I'm not referencing anyone on my team at this point, but I have to tell you at least a story that really what I realized in my business and how important this is. This is the number one thing. If you don't know this in your business, how many of you know 100% when you sit down with your agent, how much of the business they did came from them and how much of it came from you? Our mastermind members and elite members, right? So you guys get that, right? Let me tell you something. When I was in Dallas working on trying to build this business, and I get a phone call, and one of our agents wants to meet with me, talk about split, it's pretty frustrating. It's pretty frustrating, right? You're like, really? Okay. So we sit down. The thing you have to know is the first thing I realized was you have to know, number one, are you the one that's providing the value, or are they the one that's providing the value in the relationship? If your agent is doing 60% of the business is agent-generated business, that's a legit conversation you should have. Mm-hmm. But if you're providing, which in our office, the actual percentage is 82% of the business is company-generated, and in Mike's office, when he did the math, it was like 94% company-generated business, it's a pretty short conversation, right? Of the income that you made this year, 94% of it came from the business that we generated for you, and you did 8% on your own. Anything else we want to talk about? It's a really short conversation. So, and it's not just about that. What it's important to understand is knowing where your business is coming from. Mm-hmm. You have to understand, the first thing we had to put in place in order to know this is what? What do you have to know in order to be able to know this? What do you have to do? You got to track everything. There can't be a walk-in, there can't be an internet lead, there can't be a phone call that comes into your business. And teletrackers out here, and I believe they're pretty much the only one that most of us work with, unless there's another tool that's been created. But we have a teletracker number for how many numbers do you think we have with teletracker?
Up over 40.
40-something numbers. You go to superpages.com, it's a different phone number, and we know that you called from superpages.com.
Yep.
Whether it's one deal, 2 deals a year, doesn't matter. You have to, what we call protect the funnel. You have to protect the funnel. Every possible deal that happens needs to be tracked in your business. In order for you to really run it like a business, you have to know where the deals are coming from, period. And that starts with company-generated business and agent-generated business. When you know that you're generating the business and it's not being brought to you by, the agents that you have on your team necessarily, you start to make a lot better decisions in your business. Cha-ching.
P&L. So, Cuz hated looking at it. He wouldn't even look at it at all. And, now we got to the point to where with Crabtree is able to break it down into just a few numbers that you need to pay attention to. And, it's not about the revenue. It's about, how much money you can keep. And one of the numbers that you have to pay attention to is the cost of sales number. And basically the cost of sales is, what are you paying to your broker? What are you paying to your agents? What are you paying in royalties? What are you paying in cap? What are you paying out? And it's really, really critical to pay attention to this number. The lesson, how we learned to really pay attention to this number was from Jay's dad. In that, when we were still with Coldwell Banker and we were really looking hard at buying the business, and he forced us almost daily to look at the numbers. And he kept asking, are you sure you guys want to do this? You sure you want to do it? So what he forced us to do is do the math and pay attention to what we were paying out. We flew out to Palm Desert for the Cardis convention and understood all the math that had to go in there, what we're paying in Coldwell Banker. And then it gets to a point to where that number doesn't make sense anymore. And so when we looked at that number, we were like, what value are we getting in that return? And it was like, what are we doing? We're not getting any value from this. Let's go independent. And that's when we made that decision. And a lot of our masterminds have done the math as well and have made that decision as well.
We don't mean to make you all independent brokers, but it just seems to happen. So we apologize for that, but not really. So the thing we were looking at, and the whole plan was, I had all along when I got into real estate. I mean, I bled blue. I was Coldwell Banker forever. Yeah. And we were going to buy the business. And it wasn't until we started looking at the numbers and we realized, a business, if you look at all other industries, what's an acceptable profitability? So when you start plugging all this in your business and you pay yourself like you're supposed to pay yourself, a market-based wage, and you look at what's left at the end of the day, a franchise needs to deliver value in order to get that. And what we learned was we saw, this is what we saw, a squirrel. We thought, look at all this business. How many of you have gotten a Cardis or a USAA referral in your business? How many of you got a lot of it, right? So it's a huge opportunity, right? Like there's a huge opportunity with this business. And in Lawton, Oklahoma, USAA, it's a military town, Fort Sill. Everybody goes to Fort Sill. If you're in the military at some point, you're going to Fort Sill. And we're like, look at all this business that they're just giving you. Surely we can monetize that. We can make that profitable. But do you know what the referral fee is? Does anybody know? 38%. Bullshit. Are you kidding me? 38%. And it's a lot of money, right? Yeah. But in any other business, you would never give 38% away to even generate the opportunity. From marketing to generate that opportunity, you would never pay that much. We don't pay 38% to generate an opportunity. That's an insane number. The real estate industry is so damn broken that every single brokerage out there, and I'm not picking on franchises, I'm talking every single brokerage out there, gives all the money to us as agents and team leaders and now brokers. As we grow our business and we delegate and build teams, they give us all the money, right? We earn this split that's the highest split. Like, you can have 1%, Mr. Broker, because you don't do shit. I want it all, right? Good for us, but the problem is that the brokerage actually adds no value to the transaction. They add no value to the customer experience. They add no value to what it is that we do on a day-to-day basis to run our business. And if they don't, if some of them do, I'm not saying everybody's this way, but most brokerages don't add value. And if they're not adding value and they're taking 5, 10, 15, 20, 25% of the deal, you can't do it. You can't run a business that way. And we looked at it 900 different ways and we're like, well, but look at all this business that's going to happen that we would not get. We didn't do that business. Our whole business, we built up to 531 deals. We didn't do the Cardis referral business. We didn't do it. Okay. That was for the Coldwell Banker agents and on my dad's side of the business, and they pretty much did all that business. Every once in a while we would have one that was a crossover that we had worked with already, and it would end up in our lap. And then we would just get an after-the-fact referral fee is what we called it, and we would get raped is what it felt like. But that was the contract that we had with that deal. And we're looking at this opportunity to buy Coldwell Banker, and we're thinking, we can make this work. We looked at it 900 ways. You can't make it work. You can't be a profitable business giving away 38% of the deal. And you can't have your people, anyone that's investing, anyone in your business, it doesn't matter who it is, an agent, a staff, anyone that's investing in a deal that has 38% coming off the top is not, that deal's not profitable. They could be working on a deal where 38% more is coming into the deal. It's going to be way more profitable for you. And it was a difficult decision. But we decided that it just didn't make sense to buy, the franchise.
When you do that, then you're able to focus on stuff that matters, and that's what's driving the P&L. So, but you have to know these numbers. You have to do the math to be able to determine what the heck, the decisions you need to make. The other, from looking at the P&L, the revenue, cost of sales, what we just talked about, leaves us with gross, but also tying in, direct labor and the stuff that, Crabtree will talk about. So it's really just the cost associated with driving that revenue. Subtract all of that out, that leaves you with the gross margin. So paying attention to those couple numbers right there makes a huge difference.
A typical brokerage runs like this. They give away 80, 90 cents on the dollar. Is there any traditional brokers in here that's just like ready to throw in the towel? Like, this is a business we should attract more brokerages to this because we can really make you a ton of money. But there's not a lot of people that are running a brokerage, traditional brokerage, where you're giving away, agents are on a split of 80%. They bring in most of the money themselves. It's not company-generated business necessarily. It's mostly agent-generated business. And you recruit them all, and then you train them, and you do all these wonderful things for them, and then they leave you, and they go somewhere else. That's what happens, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna, now that I know what to do, and I'm on an 80% split, you know what? They're offering me down here at Remax 100%. Why don't I just go here? And the better you get, it's like it's like a revolving door as a brokerage. So it's a real challenge. Cost of sales for a company, cost of sales is 80 or 90% of the money that comes into the business is cost of sales. You can't monetize what you give away. If it's in cost of sales, if it's in that part of your P&L, you can't monetize that. You can't improve that because that's what happens only when you make a sale. So if you're not in control of that, that's cost of sales. Gross margin, everything else. So the more you can improve your gross margin, the more opportunity you have to improve your profitability. So it's about not paying as much in cost of sales. Everything you can do to control the process, pay less in cost of sales, is going to drive ultimately pre-tax profit, which is what you pay taxes on.
Yep, most important number in your business. I tell you, understanding that process, understanding the numbers is key, especially with this number right here, because that's what we're looking at from the results side. And once you understand this model and get it dialed in, our case, exactly. We were negative 2% before we met Greg Crabtree, just because we didn't know what we didn't know, and
we were idiots. I was an idiot.
Following the model, the next year we turned it around, finished the year a little under 15, so about 14 and a half. So that was about a 16% turnaround just in understanding the numbers and paying attention to those few.
There's no way in the world. How many of you hired your first buyer agents thinking, well, hell, I can't do all these deals. I might as well hire these people and let them, and it's got to make me more money, right? How many of you made that decision just on a whim? I did too. I was like, I got all these leads, I got all these opportunities. I can't go show all these houses. I might as well hire a bunch of buyer agents. I'm building a team. That's what I did, right? Like, I got this figured out. Look, I'll just build a team. There's too much to do. But you're giving away half of the money on those deals. So that makes a dramatic change on your P&Ls. And most of us don't know the relationship of that decision and how it affects your P&L. I didn't, never did. So you have to understand, how much am I paying out in cost of sales? How is this going to affect my income? Especially if you're just doing a handful of deals. I would love to say, the most amount of buyers I ever sold in 1 month was 8. How many people have buyer agents that are averaging 8 deals, 7 deals, 5 deals a month? You got some badass agents. Give them a kiss on the cheek, because they're superstars. They're not wired like we are. Okay, we run this business and you're out there crushing it and everything, and you start to hire agents. It's because you've done it, right? You'll call the lead, won't you? How many of you know you'll call the lead? I ain't gonna not call the lead. I paid money for it. I'm calling that lead. And I know that if I call the lead, I'm going to set the appointment. If I set the appointment, I'm going to sell the house and I'm going to get paid. When you hand it off to the buyer agent, do you all expect the same thing to happen? They ain't wired like us. They're not. So you're not going to get the same result as you doing the work. Man, we are passionate, crazy, not wired right people. All of us in this room, okay? We're trying to build a business. We are freaking crazy nuts. Not everybody's going to do it like we do it. And you start to learn that as you hire buyer agents. Why are you not calling the leads? Are you crazy? What's wrong with you? Come on, let's do this. Some of them will, some of them won't. And you start hiring agents, you're giving away half the money. It makes a big difference on the bottom line. You have to understand the relationship between the two. We've talked about that a lot.
Yep.
This number, this slide gave me a headache this morning. It's probably going to give everybody a headache.
So, understanding the numbers you need to pay attention to, you're able to really, lay out the plan. So this is kind of, what we kind of go through to lay out kind of what the model looks like before we really dive into strategy. So you guys know that we're opening the brokerage in Frisco in January. So we had to lay out the numbers before we were able to, to lay out what the strategy is going to be for us to get there. So as you can kind of see, with the assumptions that we have, laid out on the things that we talked about earlier, gets us down to kind of what our revenue per transaction is going to be, able to lay out what the profitability is going to look like and the decisions that we need to make, moving forward.
So there's really only, I think, let me see, one more slide. And that one's going to give you even more of a headache, but it's really important. So we'll make sure we get to it. We have a little bit of time left. We'll give you a copy of this. This is the business model that we laid out for this market. We know that our cost of sales is only going to be 29%. So for every dollar that comes in, we're giving out 29 cents in cost of sales to an agent on average. I didn't used to know that number. Putting gross margin at 71%. Do you know what the gross margin is for a typical brokerage? Does anybody? 5 to negative 12. I think the profitability is 5 to negative 12. So it may be 10 or 15%. A typical brokerage is only taking in 5% of the overall dollar that they're bringing into gross margin. Our business is going to be bringing in 71% gross margin because we control all the areas of the business that we do as a business. So a typical brokerage doesn't control lead generation at all. They don't control conversion of the lead, and they don't control the closing and the lifetime value of the lead. And my favorite session, I can't wait to see Mike do it because I know he's going to crush it, but it's like my biggest passion, my biggest realization is we think that the transaction is over. It's not. The biggest opportunity is in the referral business and the lifetime value of that client. Like we so miss that in this business. Most people get return visitors. Like if you're a 7-Eleven, people might stop at the same 7-Eleven 10 times in a month. In real estate, we're like, we sold them a house. Hell, they ain't buying another one for 7 years. Never gonna call them again. This is the biggest aha moment in our business. When we went to Jay Abraham. Thanks, John Kitchen, for making me listen to that CD with Jay Abraham and Tony Robbins interview. And we went to Jay Abraham's event, and he started talking about referrals and lifetime value and this and that and the other. And we're like, oh, we're doing all this business, and we had never talked to a past client again, ever. How many of you know your top 100 clients in your business that refer you business? You're a boss. I didn't. I had no idea. The number one person that referred me the most business when we started doing the math was, here's what I used to ask the question of, and this is a big deal. I used to ask the question, well, what marketing or advertising did you see that made you decide to give us a call? Thinking that all of my brilliance in marketing and advertising was what was generating all the opportunities in the business for us. That's what I used to ask. That was the first question we asked when you call our office. What did you see that may have made you decide to give us a call? Bullshit. We spent all this money in marketing and advertising and all billboards and wrapped vehicles. And you know what they would always say? Well, I hear you on the radio, and I see your bill, and I see your signs, and I see your wrapped Hummer, and I see your moving van. They would give me all these things, and I'm like, yep, that shit's working. It's all working. Mark that down. Moving van, great idea. You know what really, really prompted people to do business with us? The best question you can ask is, who do I need to thank for sending us your business? Because every single person had somebody that told them they should call us. I was blown away by this. I thought all this marketing and all these dollars we were spending was the right decision, and that was what's driving the business. But what happens is people get your marketing, and then people of influence start to have conversations, and they say, hey, you know what? You need to call Jay Kinder. I didn't know that. And you have these advocates out there that are people that are seeing your marketing and doing this, and they're stopping people in the street, and they're going, no, don't call them. You need to call Jay Kinder because he has a proven system to sell your home for up to 18% more. That's why you need to call him. And these people are saying that, and I had no idea. These people should be paid. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are advocates of your business. They're driving your business. All the marketing you're doing is getting people of influence to say things that get people to call you, and people are listening. And we weren't asking that question. So at the end of the day, you have to know that. You have to know that. You have to get that. What I learned was my painter, Dave DeBaca, whom I drink beer with, was sending us more business than anyone else, period, by far. Sending us more. I had no idea. I mean, it's logical now that I think about it. Dave's in painting people's houses. They're like, I'm going to sell my house. What does Dave do? You call Jay Kinder as he's painting. Why don't you call Jay? They're really good at what they do. We sell a ton of houses for Jay. Yeah, it was logical, but I didn't realize that was where the business was coming from. So understanding that's where you want to invest your money and your effort. So I don't think we can get into all of these specifics. We'll send you a copy of this slide. We're also going to send you a copy of the next slide. This probably took me 5 hours to put together. And as little as this form is, it might be the most valuable form on the planet. Yeah. And we work with Vern Harnish, and I never got this. I never understood this form. And he had a tool, and it's the functions of the business. What are the functions of the business? And when we talk about critical numbers that you have to know in your business, there's a lot of numbers, right? The most important process I've ever gone through is this process, and we'll make sure you get a copy of this. There's a couple that we got to add to it, actually.
Yeah, we got to add a couple.
Can't see any of that. I can't see any of that. So we'll get you a copy of this. But it's understanding what the roles and responsibilities are in your business. And I wish I could read that. If I could blow it up, I would. It's really good, I promise, right? So there's 3 columns there, and there's a process that we went through, and what we learned was there's functions that are in your business, and then there's leading indicators, the things that are driving profitability, and then there's the reports that you need to get to know that if that shit worked or not. Okay, so there's not like a push button solution for this in this industry, because most real estate brokerages and most agents the average agent sells 8 homes a year. Most brokerages give all the money to the agent. Nobody built a tool for people who want to run this business like a business like everybody else. Nobody built this tool because there was nobody to buy it. Okay? There's no market for it. What we're doing is not normal, right? We're crazy, stupid. So what we're doing, nobody built. So we had to start providing these solutions and going outside the industry to figure out how do other businesses handle these challenges. So what are the leading indicators? So for this chart lays out what we believe to be the leading indicators, the daily activities that every person should be responsible to do, and what are the results of those activities. So knowing what drives profitability, this is probably one of the many things that you're brilliant at, John. On a day-to-day basis, it's consistently having a rhythm in the business, and we have a couple sessions that'll get into how to execute on this. But knowing what drives profitability, what drives performance, what are the daily activities that need to happen in order to be successful? So talk a little bit about that.
For every one of the positions too. So, you do all this work, you lay out the strategy for the year, you have your quarterly session, you break it down into the month, break it down into the week, break it down to the day. And, it's every day, it's driving, what we're looking for. So, example, with our ISA, that number every day that she has to report, how many appointments did she set and how many of those were from her efforts for sell by owners, expireds, home evaluation leads, what's driving, what were the appointments set? And then, we look at it from, how many listings did we take? How many deals did we put under contract? Okay. With our buyer's agents, how many appointments, we recently tweaked this, thanks to Cuz, was how many appointments did you ask for? That's a driving number that we're paying attention to every day.
Yeah.
If we're focused on those numbers that are driving every day, it's going to get us the results. We know that. And, Crabtree talks a lot about it. And, when you're looking at the numbers, you want to spend about 25% of your time on what has happened. You want to spend 75% of your time on what is going to happen. So you've got to get really good at forecasting. And if you know what's driving the business, you're able to do that. You're able to see into the future. You're able to know what's coming. So it's critical. I think it was the absolute game changer for us in our business was the daily huddles and Crabtree. I mean, those two things right there, I think has put us in the position that we're at.
You are unstoppable. And we're going to get into this in Rainmaker Productivity. For those of you in Mastermind Elites, we're going to really get into that. Like, what do we do on a daily basis? Like, what is our calendar made up of? And ultimately, as you start to hire staff and people in your business, it's like we, admittedly, and it's a good strategy, ultimately at the beginning is delegate all the shit you don't like doing, okay? This is a writer-downer. Anything you don't like doing, your first person you hire should be doing all of that. Anything you're not good at, anything that's not dollar productive, that's not, if you are not earning the highest amount of money, those are the three things that I didn't know what I was doing at that time, but I was making a list. I was like, I hate this shit, you're doing that. I'm not good at this, you're doing that too. And I don't think this is really worth my time, and I probably didn't like it either. So you're going to do that too. You're hired. That's how it worked. And ultimately, the business model was built starting with that process, and ultimately it's like boom. Now that they morphed into positions with roles and responsibilities and something they're accountable to, and as you grow your business, that starts to get more clear. But just make the business fun again. You know what I'm saying? Do the shit you like to do. Don't do anything else. If you don't like doing it, hire someone to do it. You will make way more money. You'll love work, and if you pay yourself first, like we're talking about, you get paid to go do what you love. You're going to work a lot harder. It's not work to you. You're just like, oh, this is great. This is the best life ever. Absolutely. So as you start to grow that business and you start to do that, you're delegating those things. The thing that's most important that, it matters as you grow the business is understanding what are the roles and responsibilities. What is it specifically that they are accountable to? And what is it that you're getting off your plate? And as you go through this chart, what you'll see is the second hand is what is, as the head of the company, as head of company, your number one role and responsibility. And Vern Harnish, I had this conversation with him because I was stuck, like Mike's picture of the horse in the tree. I was stuck. I was like, I need help. So I called Vern. Vern, we had a call, and he said, you know what the job of the head of company is? And I was like, execution of the strategy. He's like, that's pretty close. He said, you know what their job is? To fill all of these boxes on the left-hand column. That's the job of this head of company. Whoever is in charge, which is most of us in the room that are in charge, your job is to fill the boxes on the left-hand side, to get your name out of these boxes of what you are accountable to. So when it comes down to it, who's accountable to, how many of you from a sales manager position, how many of you realize that your name's in that box? You're accountable to the number of leads that are marketing, leads that are generated. How many leads do you need in order to hit your goals? How many of you are in that box? Truly accountable. If the shit hits the fan, who do you go to? You can't go say, hey, listen, you're not doing the job. I told you we want to invest this amount of money in the budget into marketing, and we need to generate this number of leads, and the cost per lead we're willing to invest is this, and you're not doing your job, you're fired, I'm going to hire somebody else. Or is it, I have no fucking clue what's going on. Did we get enough leads today? And it's your responsibility, and you're like, what the hell's going on? How many of you, that's the realization, right? When you look at this chart and you start going, well, whose name goes in that box? The question is, if the shit hits the fan, whose name is in this box? And you go through this process, you go, oh, fuck, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. And you go through this, you're like, no wonder this is not fun. I have every freaking job in the business. And you start looking at who's truly accountable. And you start to realize, well, I got 3 or 4 staff. I got all these other people that do things. But if it really hits the fan, who's the one that's accountable? Did you truly make someone else accountable to it? Get it off your plate. Get it off your plate. Listen, you know what the happiest day in any of your employees' life is? The day that you give them an opportunity to be accountable to something. Give them some responsibility, something that matters, and they understand what matters. A lot of us, we hire people, they don't have no clue. You ask your staff or the person you hire, anybody that works for you, ask them, what is your responsibility? What are you truly accountable that drives the business forward? You know what they're going to say? I have no clue. You know why? Because we didn't tell them. We don't know, right? Your job is to make my job easier. And if my shit gets hard, then you're doing something wrong. Guess what? That's the worst job in the world. If you're an assistant or if you're in the room and you are working for somebody like this, I know how you feel. Because I used to drive my entire team crazy because nobody knew what it took to be successful. They did not know what success looked like. If they don't understand what success looks like, they will not ever be happy, and you will have a turnover of staff over and over and over, and you'll be like, they were just the wrong person, blah, 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 blah. No. They didn't understand what their responsibility was. What is it you're truly holding them accountable to? What do they own? Let them own it. When they own, let me tell you something. People will shock you at how much better they are than you. They will shock you at how much better they are than you are at trying to do something. Give it to them. Give them the opportunity to succeed or fail. Give it to them. Let them own it. And they will shock you. And you will love them. And you will absolutely love them. But if you don't do that and you just get frustrated, the reason we're frustrated is because you didn't know what it is that they need to do on a daily basis. And neither did they. They did not know what numbers that you're looking at, if you're even looking at them, to know that they did a good job or not. And you don't know whether to reward them or not because you're not paying attention to, they don't know it, you don't know it. But when you do know that, you have that clarity, who's responsible for the number of price reductions in your company right now? How many of you are wearing that hat still? Probably every one of us. How many of you have somebody that is responsible on a daily basis, reporting that in a daily rhythm meeting, price reductions for your company? How many have a staff, somebody that's, nobody? One, two? You guys, of course, right? So that's a big deal, right? How many of you, when you need money and the shit gets really tough, all of a sudden you're like, all right, we're going to do a call night. We're calling all of our listings and we're getting price reductions. Let's do this. How many of you have ever done that? I've done it. You know why? Because there wasn't anybody that owned it except for me. Because guess who wore that hat? Me. Nobody owned it. But when somebody owns that and they're responsible and they're held accountable to it and they have to report on it on a daily basis, what happens is nothing escapes you. Nothing escapes further than one day. Ever. When you have a daily rhythm meeting, Nothing escapes further than a day. How many price reductions is your goal for the month? 8. How many? I don't even know what the number is, but let's say, what is it, 10?
25.
That's a lot.
Yeah. 25 and 12.
25 price reductions. How many did you get today? What percentage of the goal?
Where are we at? Every day.
Every day. When your staff comes to the meeting every morning in a rhythm, this is a 15-minute meeting, and we'll have another session on this, and we're going to get out of here because we're done. But when they come to the meeting every day and they got to know that number, do you think it's clear what it is that they're supposed to do on a daily basis? They know what they got to do. They know whether they're passing or failing. They know whether they're doing a good job or they're not doing a good job. And every day, hey, what's your choke points? You know what? I had somebody today that said, they gave me this objection. I had somebody today, listen, I know this house is not going to sell. It's way overpriced. These people, they just don't want to do what we told them they need to do. You know, what should I do? You learn these choke points on a daily basis. You start hearing what's keeping them from doing their job and being accountable to what they're accountable to. They want help. And what happens? You learn that on a daily basis. Nothing escapes one day. What used to happen is you look up 60 days and you're like, damn, we need to get some price reductions. Let's call all these people. That's what used to happen because nobody was accountable to it. But it was my job. It was my fault. It was me. I should have been doing it. But I didn't even realize that my name was in that box. So I couldn't have delegated it anyways. I didn't even realize it was. So when you go through this process, and we'll send you an email with this, and we're also going to send you the KPIs and KRIs. KPIs are the key performance indicators, the things that drive the business on a daily basis. Not just how many calls, as John mentioned, it's not just how many calls you made. How many people did you ask for an appointment to come meet at the office? How many of you have listened to one of your buyer agents make a phone call? This happened to me one time.
Last story. We're about to get booted.
All right,
so.
we're going to pull this off. They keep adding time. They shouldn't do that. We should just make a negative time. How many of you have heard one of your agents making a call and going, you didn't even ask for the appointment? Has anybody ever heard that? Had that happen? Right? Like, what? You didn't even try to set the appointment. What the heck are you doing? It used to drive me crazy. I used to sit in my office and I would listen. I could hear out front and no one. And I'm like, you didn't even ask for the appointment. Making calls is not what drives the business. How many hours you spent on the phone isn't what drives the business. How many damn people did you ask to come meet with you? That's what drives the business. If you just ASK, you will set appointments. Agree or disagree? That's what drives your business. That's one of the things that drives the business on a daily basis. You can sit in there and prospect all day long, but if you're just prospecting and you're not asking for the appointment, it's not going to drive your business. What drives the business is how many people said no to you today. That's what's driving your business. You didn't ask enough questions. How many people said no 3 times today? That's what's the KPI is that drives your business. So these are the things that you have to understand in your business. So we're going to send you a list of all of this, and go through this process. Read this form, and put your name in the box that if you're rolling responsibility, and it will blow your mind. So do that tonight. It'll help you to get a clarity on how much you have to delegate, and it'll help you with understanding the numbers. Once you understand this part of the business, everything else gets easy. You stop being reactive and putting out fires and chasing squirrels and doing all these things because you know what's driving your business forward. And you'll pay attention to the things that matter, and things will not derail you as easily. We get derailed fairly easily these days. So hopefully this was valuable to you, and then there was some value that was added.